Emily Dickinson by Savannah Korok for American Literature. Early life. She was born on December 10, 1830 in Amherst. She was raised in a well-educated religious family. She attended Mount Holyoke Female Seminary but left after only a year. So her family was actually pretty social in the community. She had a little bit of family background that was intertwined in the community. Emily's lifestyle. She lived most of her life in Amherst and rarely traveled or left her family home. She was known for her reclusive lifestyle. Now, I know myself, I presumed that such an influential poet had a really big name for herself during the time, but actually that's not the case. She had a small social circle and only corresponded through letters. So rather than socializing face to face, she would only socialize with people through letters. She wore only white clothing later in life, adding to her mystery. So this dress here is the white dress that she wore, just kind of adding to the idea that she kept to herself and was really mysterious. Poetry and writing style. She began writing as a teenager, influenced by her surroundings. She wrote nearly 1,800 poems, but only 10 were published in her lifetime, anonymously. She preferred short lines, slant rhymes, and unconventional punctuation. So here is depicted a little excerpt of what her writing looks like. You can tell that obviously her handwriting is not as modernized as today, so it's hard to read, but the words and the lines are quite short, and all of her handwriting is slanted. Common themes in her poetry: death and immortality, nature and spirituality, and love and loneliness. And then here are two examples of some of her poems that are about nature. Here is a sample poetic line and analysis. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. This explores death as a journey rather than an end, and it also uses personification of death as a gentle guide. Here's another sample line. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So here, hope is depicted as a bird, symbolizing lightness, resilience, and comfort. The bird perching in the soul suggests that hope is always present, even in difficult times. So a lot of her other poems were actually quite dark or focused on, you could say, sadder, just more dark of a tone or of a feeling. Rather, with this line specifically, it actually gives more of an optimism or optimistic light to it. Opinions during her lifetime. She was largely unrecognized as a poet. Her poems were often edited to fit traditional styles. Critics found her style unconventional and strange. And then here is a little example of where her poem was put into the New York Times. Fame after death. So after her death in 1886, her poems were edited and published. Her first collection, released in 1890, later unaltered versions of her work gained recognition. She became one of the most celebrated American poets. So, like I said, for such an influential figure, she really didn't have any recognition during her lifetime. It wasn't until after she died that her poems were published and actually gained some popularity. Her work during the time just didn't fit their traditional styles and therefore did not gain popularity until later on. Her influence on American literature. She inspired modernist and feminist poets. Themes of individualism, nature, and death remain relevant. Many writers, musicians, and artists reference her works. She was a true weirdo, outsider artist who reinvented the rules of poetry and managed to contain infinitely huge ideas on miniature scraps of paper. I thought this was such a good quote that encompassed exactly what her influence was like on American literature today. She was different. She was a little bit outside of the box of what was normal during the time. And her gaining such popularity and now being one of the most famous poets says so much about going outside of the norm or being true to yourself and being a true, quote, weirdo. Conclusion. Emily Dickinson's poetry remains timeless. Her introspective, unique style reshaped literature. Her legacy continues through literary studies and adaptations. Thank you.